So my plan is to paint a piece that I've been wanting to do for years. I had drawn it with colored pencils and turned it into a sticker that looked like that. So just gonna look at this image while I create it. Okay, so this piece is gonna be super loose, easy peasy. Don't try too hard. Squeeze out some green. Creating a bunch of different colors for me to work with. So I'm going to start out with my lightest color against this light background because if I mess up, it's not really going to show up much. Not a huge fan of doing pencils ahead of time because then you can see the pencil marks. I'm better at circles if it's laying flat. This circle is actually kind of the main focal point of the entire painting. It is the bike tire. If you're mountain biking, it's a lot like flying, but more similar to a roller coaster, although one that you can actually get majorly hurt on. I've been talking a lot about the things I miss about Montana, but mountain biking might actually be better here on the East Coast because there's less rocks and it's not as steep. I don't have a mountain bike currently, but eventually I'd like to get one again. I really enjoyed it out there, but it got to a point where I wasn't having a ton of fun because it wasn't as challenging. But then when I went to challenge myself, I would like get hurt, go over the handlebars. Eeh. My husband broke his collarbone doing this. I did not, but only because I was lucky. Again, I'm going off of this image I created. I just have the image on my phone because who knows where the original is. I like to paint off of my own artwork as reference photos because all the hard work is already done for me. Like, if you're looking at an image of a real bike, you are going to have to think, oh, which way does this go? And why is that so shiny there? Whereas if you just paint off of your own image, you've already broken down all of those decisions for yourself, which is another reason why beginner artists might benefit from painting other artists' work as practice, because those artists have already broken down the shapes and the lines and the colors into something easier to digest for your eyes if they're not trained. Making something look real is a lot about shading and color, but making something look like an object is all about the shape and where you are putting those shapes in relation to each other. Such as, you could paint someone's profile and people could recognize their profile, even if it was just a blank black against white profile. And so you could paint this bike all in one color and people would know it was a bike because of its shape. So really the shape is the most important thing when you go to make art. But if you want to make it look even more realistic, then you can add in darks and lights, and you can also add in different colors. I'm really surprised at how detailed I am starting with this. I was not expecting it to be that detailed that quickly. Sometimes you can just make it looser, but if you do have the energy and you feel comfortable to start with the details, that is going to make it easier in the long run because you're going to have less to come back and fix later. Such as recently I was painting a bear and I went ahead and created all the shadows, such as what I saw in my reference image. And all I had to come back and do was add in a little bit of shading, and it was done. Instead of just doing the whole bear, a mid-tone brown, and then coming back and adding in detail later. Same thing for a bighorn sheep I painted. I thought I was just going to go in with a mid-tone of gray and come back later with details, but I went ahead and did the shading throughout the entire piece, and it was good enough to be done before I even added the details. So therefore, by adding the details, it created a masterpiece without much effort. So turn your orientation of your work sideways if it makes it easier. Placing my hand for support and stability. I like to turn this way with lines. Some people find it easier to pull the lines away from them or towards them, up or down. You just want to practice and learn what's good for you. Now, I really want to create a lot of depth here. So this is a big wheel, that one's a smaller wheel. That's just how you make things look like they're going into the background. And my apologies, I'm showing you my phone in this video. I'm going two places with this. One, I think it's rude to have your phone out in public because many of us are addicted to our phone. So the less that we can be reminded of it, the better. But the other direction I'm going with this subject matter of phones is that it's kind of catchy and trendy in videos I've seen or movies to see someone's phone because it's more realistic, because typically everywhere you go, someone's on their phone. And so I just thought it would be kind of cute to show my phone, and that's just the honest truth. But you tell me what you think. I do have the intention on this YouTube channel of helping bring people's awareness to their phone use or media consumption. It's not to say that you should never be on your phone and you should never consume content, but it is just to be aware and truly present when you are doing it. Just turning it up to really have the control over that line. Where do I want this other bike? When you're thinking about composition, this is kind of the flow of the piece. This bike and this bike, you're creating movement in the piece and the illusion of the passing of time, which your brain just loves. Just by having that, oh, the biker in the background is following this biker. On a more personal note, one of the reasons that I love this pair of bikers is because my husband and I used to go biking together and it was fun. And also another piece with the wings is that you come across a lot of birds when you're biking. Sometimes they'll fly in front of you or beside you or across the path. Just because you are moving so fast, you can scare a lot of creatures. And speaking of scaring creatures, another reason that it would be better to bike in this eastern land than over there where the grizzly bears are is because if you bike around a corner and there's a grizzly bear, you will not be the first person in the West to be mauled. And for me, grizzly bears were actually a huge reason I wanted to move away from Montana because I like to hike in the silence and just kind of zone out. But even when you hike alone out there, you still have to constantly be screaming like, hello, I'm human, just so that you don't scare a grizzly bear. And for me, it really takes me out of that like meditative, serene space. So this bike is significantly smaller than the other one. Part of that is because I don't have a lot of space up here, but also because it is in the background. And something you're doing when you have large objects and small objects is balancing out the composition of the piece. Again, this image of the biker is so simple compared to a photograph of a person on a bike. That is what I'm talking about when it comes to using your own artwork as a reference image. The only thing you have to be careful with that is that your artwork starts to look repetitive, and unless you're going for that, that could be a downside to it. Such as I've done a lot of pieces with frogs in them, and I'll use the same reference photos, which in turn causes people to recognize, oh, that frog in this painting looks a lot like that frog in that painting. This must be by the same artist, which can have its pros, but at the same time, if you are looking for a more original sort of vibe with each painting being very unique, you might have to caution against this tip I'm giving you of using your own art as a reference photo. So you guys are kind of lucky right now getting a acrylic tutorial because of all the art classes I teach, I rarely teach acrylic painting. And acrylic is my main medium, so I am going to have the most tips for you here. The reason I don't really teach it is because it's a huge cleanup and a very expensive class because of all of the paint, and there's a considerable amount of paint wasted as a beginner. And if you have a class full of beginners squirting out lots of paint, especially if they're children, which is why I will pour the paint for the children. But anyways, at the end of class, when you're tired and trying to clean up, you probably don't want to save all that paint, carry it in your car with you home, risk it getting all over your car. Not that I care, because my car's just, we are running it into the ground. That's the plan. Anyways. Oh, yeah. You don't have the time to use up all that leftover paint, but typically in my own practice, I will take any leftover colors, especially if they're pretty, and repurpose it by repurposing other materials such as fabrics, bags, and putting leftover paint on those. So here's a great example if you need to erase something. If it's too large, you can get a paper towel wet. You can take the wet paper towel and erase it. If you are wanting to be very precise with the eraser, you can get a flat brush like this, get it damp, and be very meticulous. You may have to go back and forth between the water and the paint a few times. I didn't really need to erase this, I was just giving you an example. Until it's the way you want it. I get a flat brush dedicated specifically as an eraser because if you use it in paint, these bristles get spread out and you are not going to have as much precision. So you want to save this brush specifically for the eraser. The wings are kind of coming from the bike, kind of coming from the people. So I'm just going to put it in a random spot. It's a little bit higher in my piece than in the reference image. The reference image is coming more like from the bike, her elbow area. Mine's going to come from her shoulder. I just had to turn it sideways to get a nice edge. Okay, so wings took me forever to learn how to paint. You just kind of want to get the basics of it. There's always this kind of fluffier area that the bigger feathers are coming out of, and the basic shape of it is kind of fluffy, and then it gets fluffier. So I need to make my wing bigger because I really want it to come, since I moved it up, it also got moved off the wheel. See there, I messed it up. I can just meticulously clean it up. So yeah, if you want something to span a larger area, I don't want to just widen it here and bring it up to the same point because that is just going to be an awful shaped wing. I want to bring the tip of the wing out much further. So I'm enlarging this image, this shape, in all directions and not just down here. Now the other side in this picture, it's coming out of her bottom and then it's crossing over the wing in the background. Anytime you can cross things, as I mentioned in my last tutorial, does create more depth, but it depends what you're looking for. And also this kind of just, it's really just how it turned out. Switching colors because I noticed there's not really much of an elbow here, and so that I can remember it later, just gonna go ahead and put that in. If you see something, just go ahead and do it because chances are you'll either forget it later or you'll have to rethink about that. And if you want your painting practice to be easy, you just want it to be as flowing, seamless as possible. And if you have to hold on to a thought, you're then blocking other thoughts from coming into your mind. So I don't really want the wing coming out of the same spot here either. The wings don't have to be the same size either, because maybe they're at an angle, you know, maybe the different size creates the angle. I am going to cross over bike in the background too. So this wing is coming over the wheel. That's pretty. I like that. Alrighty, put that basic shape up here. And it really does need to be a little longer, but I don't want to drown out this guy, but I will give it maybe a little bit more length. All right, now his wings. Something that you want to avoid in art is the crossing of two lines right here to here. So like the tip of this wing is not going to be compositionally correct or visually pleasing if they touch. Same for photography. It's like if you were to photograph my face and the top of my head is perfectly in line with the canvas, it just wouldn't look as good as if it framed me, or if it, I mean, even if it was below me at my shoulders, you don't really want the top of a line to go straight through someone's head. Same thing for this vertical direction. Like if you're photographing someone, you want it to be to the side. You don't want it to just look like there's a post coming out of the top of someone's head. That is the same thing we're working with here. So bringing this wing up higher above that, or lowering this one a little bit, both of those options work. And just so that it's not super confusing on me later, I'm just gonna kind of wipe off that extra stuff going on there. But I'm gonna cover it up anyway, so I don't really have to wipe that off. It's just to make it easier on myself. I like easy flowing. All right, so wings coming down. That wing's pretty long. I could make this one a little longer, but I think I'll make that one a little shorter. One of the benefits of painting a background first with acrylic is that then you do have this option to erase with water, and it is so nice. For years, I painted on an absorbent medium that I placed on the canvas that was white. So if you made a mistake, there was going to be a stain there until you covered it up again. And so it was a little bit more challenging. And of course, one of the other benefits is that you don't have to come back and paint around the subject matter, your background. I did that for many years, and it was because I wanted these bright colors to have white behind them and show up really well. If I wanted to do that and I already put down a background, I could easily just paint white. But you can see how the blue is shining through that green and dulling it. It's not as bright as if you were to paint this straight on white. Now I'm kind of taking note of the composition. So this wing is almost at the top, and it's about, 2 inches from the edge. This wing is about 3 to 4 inches from the edge. 4 inches. And that's great. I don't really want this to be completely centered. I want it to be kind of heavier over on this side. It's not quite touching the bottom. That's great. This is definitely too low. I would have loved for the head to be higher than the wing, like in the drawing, but I ran out of canvas. So the option would be shifting the whole piece down, and that's too much work. I don't need to be such a perfectionist that I need to redo all that work to move it down. It'll just be good the way it is. But it is very flat up here. Or as you can see, the image also has like birds in the background up here to kind of balance out those lines. I think if you do have these straight lines up here, you could make it look more intentional by putting more straight lines in the piece, but these guys are following a very curved track, so we're just gonna get going and not really worry about it. I spray my acrylic paints with water so that they stay wet and don't dry out. Alright, so this brush has seen better days. It is very worn out. You see how frayed and worn out that brush is? The problem is, this is the only one I have I can work with. And every time I go to the store, they're sold out. And then every time I buy online, I don't get what I need. But I said this piece was going to be loose, and if you want to make a loose piece, you need a bigger brush. So you can see I was using this round brush for line work. This one is going to be to fill in some shapes. I also have this brush, which is in better condition, but it's significantly smaller. Something that I do to see before I get the brush all covered in paint and have to clean it out is to make sure I'm going to use the right one. I just pretend I have paint on it. Like, what would it feel like to fill in this whole area with this tiny brush? That seems hard. What would it feel like to fill in this tiny area with this big brush? That seems hard. Sometimes there's no way of winning unless you have more brushes to choose from. But I have all these brushes and somehow I don't have what I need. Oh wait! I found a brush. I just need more light. That's what it comes down to. Look at that. That's gonna be perfect. Because this frayed brush is going to be harder to make those little lines with, but this brand new one is gonna be so easy. I'm trying to decide what color I want to use. Something that I just learned in the last 2 or 3 years is building to the value. If I go in with a dark color right now, then I'm not going to have anything to use to put in fine lines and shadows. And so that's what I mean by building to the value. You just want to start with a mid-tone and add lights later and add darks later. This one's definitely the lightest one in my palette, but I don't really have any mid-tones right now. So I'm going to use this one. This brush is great because you can get those really thin lines or wide lines. I always have the intention of making something super loose and then I get really tight with it anyways. But I have seen some artists painting on YouTube and it can be challenging not to compare yourself to them. But I love cartoons and simple art figures that don't even have faces. Bodies that look like they're made of Play-Doh. And regardless of how talented you are, there's always going to be someone that's different. Maybe not better, but different. So it comes down to not only liking your own work, but just enjoying making it. Because when you're done making it, you never have to see or touch it again if you don't want to. So really, all of the joy is right in the moment. I'm going to turn this into a time lapse and just ease into the quiet for a while, which is really what I paint for. And then we'll get back to teaching in a minute. Could you even dare to bear a moment of silence with me? How many videos have you been watching today? And how many of those videos give you a moment of silence? Because silence could very well be the very most beneficial thing that you could do today. And see what comes up for you in these next moments of silence. Does it feel uncomfortable? Do you feel fidgety? Do you feel like someone's forcing you? Do you feel like I'm forcing you to be still for a minute? Or does it feel calm and releasing and relaxing? Just see how it feels. It's short. It's an experiment. Or maybe you're in silence often. Let me know, as this is what I want to give you on this channel. A chance to get your resources back of time and attention, because we all do something with our time. And if you are going to be here on this channel, I want that time to be given back to you in some respect, to point your focus and awareness and attention onto something that matters. Don't worry, Canvas, I'm coming back. Just taking snack time. So the card on my camera is full. Lest I lose the flow, I am going to just call the video there. As you can see, we're getting some details. Behind me is another painting I did. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you, and understanding will guard you. Guys, I cannot believe that I finished this piece all in one session, besides the background. I mean, this is unheard of for me, and yes, it's simple, but I mean, my attention span and the creativity is a little bit abnormal, at least to the extent that I feel so satisfied with this piece. Like, I love how it turned out, and it felt very inspired and flow-based. So, what I'm gathering is that the more I create art, the more creative capacity I have, and the more inspired I get, and the better I get at it too. While I was taking that snack break, I was staring at this piece from a distance while sitting on a comfy couch. Ah, I love couches and pillows. But anyways, I saw that this bird here would fit in this shape, and it really helps the composition and balances out that really flat bit there, because down here is also really flat, so they mirror each other. And it is kind of symmetrical in that, like, this higher portion is smaller, and then this kind of widens out. And also a group of 3. For some reason, that's one of the art rules, is negative numbers are more visually pleasing. So you have the pieces of it. I chose to not put any green down here in this bird, just so that it is easily differentiated from these two. And then, of course, these also don't have white up here. I just had the ideas from the clouds on the spot. Just go with the ideas that come up. I was really in the flow to do all this in one painting session, so you can see why I didn't continue filming, because I'm not about to sit at the computer in the middle of a painting session to clean off a card, because if you're rushed, you always risk accidentally deleting everything on the card without saving it properly or creating backups. So yeah, I really like it. I'm feeling super inspired that I need to be painting like this all the time, like fast, and slow stuff. But yeah, I really like that kind of fast vibe. Look, there's that other one. It's dark in here, but there's that other one. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please like and comment. This really helps support me as an artist, as a YouTuber, and it also helps other people benefit from what I'm creating out here, which I think is worthwhile. So if you feel the same, I'd be incredibly grateful if you wanted to share the video. I used to think that asking people to like my video and subscribe and share was just like too salesy, but I also realized it is the way to get the information out there. And sometimes people don't really know how they can help you. So I'm telling you, you can help me by liking and commenting. I appreciate you guys. Bye.